with the real estate market slowing down, one of the things I am so happy to see coming back is the fact that buyers can actually write in inspections. So we're going to talk about what kind of inspections you should get, what you might see. And I like a market where you don't have to cancel inspections. And to have this conversation, we are going to talk with Beth Traverso. How you doing, Beth?
Hi, doing great, Mike. Nice to be here.
I don't know about you, but I really like when I'm a buyer doing inspections. Uh, you know,
Absolutely.
so
Yes. And I saw in your one rental at a time Facebook group that somebody asked. So this topic was inspired by somebody's question in the group where they just wanted to know,
awesome.
hey, I'm under contract, which is like, yay, you're doing the work, you got an offer accepted. Bravo.
Hmm.
Now you're in inspection phase. What should you expect from your
Yep.
inspection? And yes, I'm with you. For first of all, hallelujah, we get to have inspections again as buyers. There was a while there where people had to waive things and just jump in blind, and that's just risky.
Yes.
And so one thing I want to say is like you should always have an inspection. Now, if you're a contractor or somebody who's heavily experienced and you can go through and look and be like, okay, we're good, then but you have to be ready to accept whatever that house brings and just have a good idea by looking at it what you're dealing with.
Hmm.
um but most people don't fit in that category, and I think most of the viewers are people that maybe don't do this all the
Hmm.
time and haven't done a lot of rehab work, etc., and got a house under contract, and now what do? So one of the first things I would say is be sure and team up with if you're working with an agent, which I think most are, your agent's going to guide you on what your contract allows, because you need to know for sure what the parameters are, because usually there's a very specified period of time. I know in our contracts, you may have 5 business days to get your inspections done. And if you don't respond with that by that 5th day, it just goes away. And
Yeah.
you're
Use it
buying
or
it
lose it.
as
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
So you need to be aware of your timelines and make sure you're working within those timelines, and time is of the essence. You got to get somebody in there right away.
Hmm.
Now, hire a professional inspector. Don't do it Uncle Joe or whatever. I've seen, even if Uncle Joe's a contractor, I've had some bad experiences way back in the earlier parts of my career. They changed things more recently where it has to be a license. You can't just have anybody do it. Um, because if somebody comes in and they don't know what they're doing and they damage the house, guess who's usually responsible for that? The buyer. So
Yep.
be mindful of that. What should you have inspected? Generally speaking, I would say everything. You want to make sure you're talking to an inspector or you're hiring an inspector that's going to go in the crawl around in the crawl space, do the dirty work, put the suit on, go down there, check it out, go up in the attic crawl space, walk around on the roof, look at everything you can look at without tearing into walls. So we want to make sure
Correct.
they're seeing everything as far as the systems, the electrical. In older houses, sometimes we have things like lumberjack landlord where he is, and in Seattle, where I spent many years of my career, you're looking at things like, is it knob and tube wiring? Has it been swapped out for Romex, some more modern wiring? Is it galvanized plumbing, or has it been swapped out for copper or PEX? How old is that furnace? What type of furnace is it? Is there an underground oil tank? And what type of siding is that? Is it asbestos siding? Is it a recalled LP? There's all these things. And for myself as an agent, I'm not an inspector, but I've attended so many hundreds of inspections and seen so many houses myself that I can pretty much look and point a lot of those things out. But even I will say, like, I'm not an inspector. Like, you need to have an inspector come evaluate those things.
Mhm.
And if they find hazardous materials, then there's a process usually where you can bring in an expert to
Mhm.
evaluate further.
Yep.
Um, and there are also regional variables. Like, for example, we don't really have much in the way of termites, but I imagine maybe do you in Fresno have
Oh
termites?
yeah. Yeah. So I've done, I don't know, a lot of inspections, and we have subterranean termites everywhere.
Yeah.
So when I see subterranean termites, again, this is my opinion and my opinion only, it doesn't bother me. But if the termites are in the building, that's a problem. So I've tented and
Right.
replaced and done all of that. But when I see subterranean termites, it's like they're everywhere. They're certainly everywhere in Fresno, given it's a farming and area. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and when we for a little while, we owned some properties in New Orleans, and these Formosan termites are everywhere there, and you have to be under contract for regular sprays and all this
yep.
stuff. So be aware of those things. In some places, they have, if it's a pool, there's a pool there, then you'd have probably a pool inspector come and do
Yep.
that. We don't really have that much in the Northwest. Septic. that's a big deal where I
Oh
am.
yeah, I've
Septic
had to
almost.
replace those before. Yep.
Oh yeah, and where we are, it's highly regulated, and it can be $50,000 for a failed septic, and 6 months, it's a nightmare. So you want to make sure that's actually an ordinance where we are, that the seller must inspect that and provide a report. So that's a good thing for the buyer. Well, is it on a well? We get that
Yeah.
sometimes. We're kind of a mix of
Sometimes.
both where I am, and you need to know, like, it's not just a given on a well that you turn on the water and it's always going to come out and it's all going to be fine. You want to know water quality and other things like that. So, and in some
Yeah.
areas there's radon too. We don't have that here, but
Yeah.
at least I've never seen it here, but
Yeah. So when I think about inspections again as an investor, right, there's the home inspection, which is the guy going in and testing the electrical and crawl spaces and sinks and just all of those things. That in my world, I think that's several $100. Typically, what will happen on a home inspection report like that is you'll get section 1 and section 2 items. First and foremost, hear me now. You pay an inspector to go in. Their job is to generate a long list because they are trying to get the work on the other side.
I tell people to expect a 50-page report on
Just
any house.
expect it.
Yeah.
Just expect it, right? Their price points are, again, I've been doing this a long time. They're generally speaking 50% over what I could get somewhere else. My experience. Section 1 is something that I will pay close attention to. Section 2 at this point, I might read, but very rarely take action on, just
Yeah.
because it's, again, he's trying to catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that the first time you get a home inspection report, you're going to be scared. Probably the second time, you're going to be scared. By the fifth time, they don't phase you because, as Beth said, you expect a 50-page report. And when I go through them now, I'm looking for the one or two things that I may have missed. Because again, once you do this enough, you're like, I already knew that. I'm going to replace that. Oh, I missed that. Is that a problem or not? Then on top of that, I generally recommend roof inspections, right? You can tell, right? It's the roof brand new. Do you have a roof cert if it is brand new, or, is that something to look at? Something that got me during the REO crisis was sewers. Now, I
Oh, yeah,
didn't have a
that was
right
one I
to,
wanted to mention too.
yeah, sewer
Big deal.
inspections. Like if you're new, scope one, because I don't know
Yeah,
what it
where
would
we
be
are,
today.
it's often a separate $300 or so, but
Yeah,
oof, we always, in
scope it.
fact, sellers that are on sewer especially in the older areas like Seattle with those old concrete pipes that are
Yeah,
deteriorating to point of collapse.
correct. Yep.
Sellers are expected to do that as a favor. Like, here's a sewer scope when you list it. Like, you just provide that to buyers because then they can just do their other inspections as they need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a huge thing that can cost tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
depending on a lot of
It was
different
it was
factors.
almost 10 grand for me back in 2010. So who knows what it is today? But yeah, I got hit by that 6 or 7 times in a row. That was no
Oh
fun.
boy.
Yeah, it was no
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Other inspections. Go ahead.
Oh, so I want to say, a couple things that I noticed, and so one thing I want to say, like when I'm working as a listing agent, which is a lot of the time, we like to do our own pre-inspections, and we don't tell buyers that we never tell a buyer they can't do their own, but it's just information to provide and to help the seller get ahead of things, because there's certain things that most people don't go crawling around their crawl space or go up in their attic. And I have to tell you, I haven't, in my own house, but I don't want to get surprised. But the two things I see the most, that major things that come up in inspection reports, are rodents in the crawl space, because they're everywhere and it's just a fact of life. And I'll admit it, it's gross and people don't get put off by that, but it's also very easy to deal with. And then also the mold in the crawl space, which it doesn't necessarily have to mean black mold, but just like there's inadequate ventilation in the attic crawl space. And it's caused, they don't call it mold, they call it organic growth, because you don't know if it's mold until somebody tests it.
Tests it. Yeah.
So,
yeah, you got to
and
watch
then,
that word.
yeah, so we don't use that unless it's been proven. But if those things pop up, okay, we've got the companies that we work with all the time where we can have them just come out, take care of it, hopefully before it's listed, and then boom, done. Or if you're a buyer and you see that, we can go, okay, we've got here's our people that we use, and we'll just ask for the seller to pay for that to be done before closing, but you don't want to get caught by surprise with those things in those places where you never go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So at the end of the day, I think their home inspections are back. I definitely recommend getting them. It's a way just to know more information, which I think first time home buyers and first time investors should do. Definitely understand the timelines, whether it's 5 days or 2 weeks or 10 days, whatever it is in your area. Don't cheap out, and
No.
also expect a big report. Those are kind of my
Yeah.
closing words of
And
advice.
then work with your, I would say other thing is like work with your agent on what you can do to negotiate these repairs. Now, if
Yes.
you're buying at rock bottom price as is price, then it may be limited what you're able to. Sometimes I'm able to get some more credit for that or reduce
Yeah,
price
maybe.
or something. Depends. It's going to depend a lot on the dynamics of the sale. Are you competing with are there 5 other buyers and there's backups in place that can't wait for you to disapprove your inspection? Then your leverage is going to go down. But a lot of times we are able to get concessions and credits for closing costs or repairs done. I personally, as a buyer's agent, I like it when the seller gives a credit to the buyer because then the buyer can have their own contractor do it the way they
Yes.
want after closing,
Me too.
instead of a seller who's just trying to do a cheap rush job, oftentimes just to get the deal done.
Yes. I
So,
would definitely negotiate for the credit if I could. That'd be
mhm,
my preference for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yes,
somebody what? Go ahead.
inspection's good.
Yes.
Do
Inspections are
them.
good. They're back. Go get them.
Yeah.
Beth, if somebody wanted to buy or sell in King County or just network with the best of the best, how would they reach out?
Yeah, so somebody can reach out to me directly through my website, bethtraversogroup.com, or just look me up on social media and reach out to me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.